what about the jobs ad performance? How does this affect job ads, right? So the thing we wanted to study is when you include pay in a job title, what are the recruiting costs? What hit, if any, what change, what benefit do you get? I would sum it up by saying it pays to be transparent as a recruiter. And again, I'm not trying to advocate for the passage of these laws. We don't do that at Appcast. But one of the things we found is that we looked at over 10 million job postings this year in 2022. And what I'm showing you here is since January of 2022, by week, we looked at the cost per click of job ads, over 10 million job ads. Now, 85% of these job ads did not include pay in the job title. That's the blue line here. Around 1.5 million, or around 15% of the job ads did include pay. That's the orange line. And by the way, just time out for some context here. That's pretty consistent with what we know from national data. Around 80 to 85% of all job postings in the U.S. don't mention pay at all. This is very different. This is just an interesting aside. It's very different in other markets. So in the UK, for example, or in Japan, for example, culturally, it's much, much more prevalent, as in the majority of jobs are upfront with pay transparency. So the U.S. is a bit of an outlier in that most of our jobs don't include it. Well, back to this chart. What Sam studied is, okay, what are the cost per click, the CPC differences between job postings that do mention pay and ones that don't? Now, we did a number of controls here. One thing we did is we removed any mention of bonus payment or any kind of cash bonus, starting signing bonus. We wanted to just isolate job titles that would mention, say, warehouse associate, $18 an hour, or registered nurse, $90,000 a year. Anything that mentioned with a dollar sign and some connotation of either a salary, annual salary, or an hourly wage range. And so sometimes you could make a job posting that said cashier, and that it didn't mention the pay, or you could say cashier, $15 an hour. And so we wanted to isolate what the impact was on the job ad performance. And what we found is, hey, it pays to be transparent. You're going to get a lower cost per click. And what's happened is earlier this year, there was maybe a 20% discount over the first quarter of this year for job titles that did mention pay in the job title. But over time, it's grown to 35% of a discount. You see right now that the average cost per click for jobs that don't mention pay, which is the vast majority of jobs, is around $2.30. But for jobs that do mention pay, in this study, in this sample, it was around $1.50 for those that did mention pay in the job title. So this is a significant discount. Now, over time, we wanted to see, well, was this concentrated in certain industries or certain areas? And what we found is no. Across industries, there's a pretty significant savings gap. That's what I'm showing you here. For education, it's $1.66 per click of a savings gap if you mention pay, right? So classroom assistant, $35,000 a year. If you mention pay versus not mentioning pay, $1.66 discount of the CPC being cheaper when you mention pay in education. Same in manufacturing, in warehousing and logistics, where it was 79 cents cheaper. So pretty consistently across a number of industries, we see that it pays to be transparent, at least in terms of the recruiting cost, right? It makes logical sense that if you're a recruiter, you're going to get more engagement from a job ad if you mention the pay up front, not just in the posting, but in the title. Now, of course, all of this advice is conditional on your pay being market rate. If you were to say cashier, minimum wage, maybe you wouldn't get that much engagement, right? If you were to say registered nurse, $25,000 a year, you probably wouldn't get that much engagement. So conditional, this is our kind of intuitive sense. I don't have data to prove this, but if you're way offline, if you're way below market, you're probably not going to get the benefit of this, it pays to be transparent phenomenon. And so this is a really just stunning finding. And what stunned me too is that it's pretty universal. 49 of 50 states have lower CPCs, lower cost per clicks for job titles that mention pay. The one exception you'll see as you go down this list is actually the state I'm in right now, Massachusetts. For whatever reason, it seems like the cost per click is a little higher than for jobs that do mention pay, but that's the exception. For almost all other states, for all other states, it pays to be transparent. And so just to summarize this key research here, that job seeker interest is higher in states with pay transparency, but job postings are lower.